The gospel of Jesus Christ is the only way to salvation. The gospel of Jesus Christ can only strengthen the saints. And God entrusted the gospel to Paul to preach to the people. Therefore, Paul was eager to preach the gospel to the Roman church because it is his obligation. But this commandment, this obligation is not only for Paul, but also for us. Jesus commanded his disciple, go and make a disciple of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And he also said in Mark 16, go into all the world and proclaim the gospel to the whole creation. The Apostle Paul instructed his disciple Timothy, preach the word, be ready in season and out of season, reprove, rebuke, and exhort with complete patience and teaching. Always be sober-minded, endure suffering, do the work of an evangelist, fulfill your ministry. As the disciples of Jesus Christ, we also have a duty. We also have an obligation to preach the gospel. Likewise, as Paul said, when we preach the gospel, we have no reason to boast, for necessity has been laid upon us. But woe to us if we do not preach the gospel. Don't forget that we have an obligation to preach the gospel. Paul said he had an obligation to both Greek and barbarians, to the wise and to the foolish. The gospel makes no distinction. Even though Paul was a citizen of the Roman Empire and was intelligent, but he had to preach the gospel to everyone without discrimination. Paul wanted to preach the gospel to everyone. So he was willing to become a servant to others, to preach the gospel, because it was his obligation. But when we think of our salvation, when we think of our blessing by his amazing grace, we must remember our obligation to preach the gospel to the people. Brothers and sisters, who are God's herald in Richmond Hill, Aurora, Newmarket, and Toronto area today? We are. The Bethel Canadian Church is under the obligation to those Canadians and immigrants, to the wise and to the foolish, to the rich, to the poor. We have obligation to preach the gospel to our neighbors. Be eager to share the gospel with your family, with your friends, with your co-workers and neighbors. Be eager to invite them to church to hear the gospel. Become their servant. Serve them, sacrifice for them, to save them by the gospel of Jesus Christ. It is our duty, and God will use us as a herald for his salvation.